Hello, good afternoon, guys. I think we should start now. It's like 1:04. We are recording this session. I just want to inform you guys that just to maintain for the quality purposes, we are recording this session. And I would like to introduce myself. I'm Dr. Zain Abdeen. I'm founder and CEO of IMG Helping Hands. And also, I'm the board of directors of the member of the board of directors of American Academy of Research and Academics. So the reason for today's webinar is to train you guys on how to conduct or how to fill your applications. I know most of the people are applying for match, and it's the season. It's just like last 2 months before the match applications, the interview season will start. So I'm gonna introduce our guest, Dr. Sarah. She's the founder and CEO of unmatchedmd.com, and I would just give her a warm welcome. So welcome, Dr. Sarah.
Hi, thank you, Dr. Zain.
You're welcome, yeah, Dr. Sarah. So we would like you, if you could start your presentation so I can go next. So I'm just going to explain how it will work. So initially, Dr. Sarah is going to present and how she's going to be useful, how unmatchedmd.com will be useful for you guys. And then you can ask any question you want. And then after that, I'm going to present for the CVs and how to craft your CVs and how to write the PS and all and the other stuff for the match season. Sounds good. So yeah, Dr. Sarah, I think, are you able to share your screen or your PowerPoint?
Yes, I am. Give me 1 second. We'll go ahead and start here. And all right, everyone, thank you for joining us today. And I want to go ahead and get right into it, just to make sure, because I know it's just around crunch time. Thank you, Dr. Zain, for the introduction. Like he said, I am the founder and CEO of Unmatched MD, which I started about 5 years ago. In terms of helping people match, I started creating resources and learning the insides and outs of the match and knowing things that I wish I had known when I had applied and how helpful they were for me and for every kind of applicant, for the applicant with the high scores, the applicant with not the high scores. And so I want to go ahead and make sure that everybody understands that and some things that people kind of lose sight about. So let's get right to it. Like I said, welcome to Match 2024. This is going to be about the last process right before you finish your training. And about 206 days away is about the day you submit your rank order list. So from September 27th to February 28th, you want to go ahead and do what you can to get as many interviews as you can. So I know there's been a lot of talk about what's different and what's not. So I think it's very important. I'm sure a lot of you guys, what I was reading over from the forms, this is the first time you're applying. So it's like, how can you tell if what's different if you don't even know what's the same? And what's the same is the very most important part. And it's going to seem very basic, but you'll be surprised on how deep into this process you go into and you forget. And that's why I want to start off with it. So first thing is what's the same in Match 2024 for applicants. It's going to be the same thing. We have an MSPE, school transcript, a ECFMG report, your photograph, your My ERAS application, letter of rep, personal statement. So what does that mean? So that means that every program is going to get an MSPE, a medical school transcript, your ECFMG report if you're an IMG, a photograph, and your My ERAS application. So what are the two parts that can change? So meaning if you apply to 3 different specialties, every single one of those specialties are going to get the first part, but what are the ways that you can customize it? In terms of, you often hear people saying, oh, I made 45 different personal statements or letter of recs. Well, those things are not just program specific. They're also, when you look at the broader picture, the only 2 things you can change in the application. You can't go back and change your grades. You can't change your scores. That one ERAS thing, that application that you're going to fill is going to go to every specialty, every program. So there's no modification. And so you're kind of stuck with just the letter of recs and personal statement. That's going to come into hand a little bit later, but just to keep in mind when you're filling out that my ERS, like, oh, I'm going to, have one for a different specialty or this one. No, that's going to be one for all. So it's not much tailoring you can do. Everyone's going to see your experiences, all your activities, your honors and awards, just in case you were thinking that you could kind of tailor that. There's not really much you can tailor. So the only thing that you can tailor are your letter of recs and your personal statement. All right. Also, another thing to keep in mind is when you're filling out that My ERS, that is, and once you certify and submit, you will not be able to change anything in that, even if you have to go through SOAP. The next time you'll be able to change for that is next September, or the next time you have to reapply if you have to. So just make sure that you have that. You're sure about that. So meaning if there's any BLS or any things that you wanted to add in there that you would, you might not be certified now, but you think, oh yeah, maybe I can get certified in December. Maybe you might want to hurry that up and get those certified now, because that is the same application you apply with SOAP. If you have to go off cycle, it's the same application when they say, can I get a copy of your My ERS? So you're kind of stuck with that. So just keep that in mind when you're filling that out, that you're going to be stuck with that application for a year, at least until the next time ERS opens. Okay, next part is what's the same for residency programs in Match 2024. So the way they accept applications and the way they review applications, which is on the My ERS platform, which for program directors is the program director's workstation, is still the same. So that means that workstation requires residency programs to create filter criteria to find applicants to interview. They still have to create how they're going to evaluate applicants in terms of ranking them, what documents are going to mean more, what documents. Now, each residency program has to do that for starting their season on this part. So there's not like, all family med programs are going to have the same filters. Or every residency program, that is how they begin their ERS compared to how we begin. Okay. Now, this is the part where everyone's going to think this is very redundant, but the match process is still the same, what do you need to do to match? You have to apply, you interview, and then you rank. So just to keep in mind, everyone make sure you register for the match, and everyone needs an interview to submit for a rank order list to be to get matched. Now, looking at that backwards, what are the things that you could think of you can do to increase your chance of matching? If you just look at it like this, having more number of interviews, so you have more specialty or more programs to rank. That could be a thing. So you want to increase the number of interviews. Now, however, you only need one interview to match, but just looking at it in how many, what are my ways I can increase? So after you apply, what's the next step that you can do? You want to make sure you get notice, so you're invited for an interview. After you interview, then you're able to rank programs. So that's very important. So apply, get noticed, interview, then rank programs. So that's the main key. Okay. Now let's talk about what's different. This year, there is something called the holistic review, where they want to look at the whole applicant. There's been a lot of talk about that, along with the changes that they've made. But one of the biggest changes that I think that people don't realize is that there's no CV. You have 10 experiences. So before, a regular CV, which would have your chronological, order of all your rotations, everything you've done. So, the last time you were in a clinically relevant rotation, observership. No, now we're just going to have 10 experiences. So you're not going to have that chronological order, meaning, do they know what you're doing right now? Do they know, or, that's something you're going to have to decide. Well, because previously it would all be out there chronologically, everything you've done since, in med school, but now it's just 10. So, figuring out what are those 10 and how they call it is selected experiences, That's going to be something important. So, if you have that gap, do you want to show it? Is this something that's going to be meaningful? Or if you don't have that gap, how, this would be something where you're like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and pick. So those are some things that I would consider if when picking my 10 experiences, compared to an applicant that just went straight out of med school and they took their exams and they graduated, no gaps. They're going to pick their 10 selected, compared to someone that there may be gaps, and then they're worried that, what what will the program think, or how am I going to show that I've been active? Well, then you may want to consider picking one of your most recent experiences as one of those 10. Another thing that's different this year is having the geographic preferences. This is something that you're going to pick three regions, or how they call it, the U.S. Census regions, of where you have a preference towards. So where do you feel close ties to? You can pick 3, or you can pick no preference. Another thing will be the setting preferences. When I say settings, that's do you have a rural? Do you like urban? Do you like suburban? Yeah. Do you have a preference for that? Um, After that, what we had previously gone through was the selected experiences. So picking our 10 selected experiences, and then between those 10 experiences, picking the 3 most meaningful ones. And then the optional one being the an impactful experience, something that may have impacted your journey or that you want to know. Now, keep in mind the impactful experiences is optional. Another change is the hometowns. Previously, you would list only one. Now you're able to list up to 5. That can be an advantage. So geographic preferences, we had 9 regions, and you would pick 3. So here you have the option for hometowns to pick 5 different regions. You can, there's other ways that you can show on the application if you're like, well, I have a preference for everywhere. You can pick those 3. You can pick 5 hometowns. You can pick different current or permanent addresses. So there's a lot of different ways, even though it's different. But you kind of have to be, you kind of have to strategize. What way, or what is the outcome that you want? Do you want to focus on all, and how are you going to show all and make everyone kind of feel special? In terms of being able to give a geographic preference, but still not missing out on the ones that you didn't preference. So those are those options that do still exist in the. Now, looking at what else is different is looking at the specialty specific requirements. So one of the biggest things is program signals. There's 22 programs that are 22 specialties that are participating in it. So program signals were created by URAS to help residency programs figure out who to invite for an interview. So this is your key on to get noticed. That you just send a signal. So one of the things, you don't have to write why or anything, you're just signal them. So 22 specialties are going to be participating in that. That is something that I would not overlook at all. It does not cost extra. You do it at the time of the application. There's no harm into it. And actually, what they found in the data last year is people were more likely to get an interview, the ones that signaled. Now, like I said, this is just giving them a signal, no reasoning, nothing. So I would not let that opportunity go by. Another thing that's important with what's different were the specialty specific ones. Even though we're looking at program signals, and all we have to do to apply to other specialties is change my LORs and personal statements, we still want to make sure that we are meeting these requirements. So each specialty sets the guidelines. So even though each residency program sets the requirements, each specialty kind of sets the guidelines, and it is a choice of a residency program to follow or not follow. So some of those would be for emergency medicine. We know about the SLOE, which is those standardized letter evaluations. Internal medicine even has one, along with the OB-GYN, orthopedic surgery, and neurosurgery. One of the things is, like I said, this is a program or specialty specific recommendation. You would have to check with each individual residency program whether they're going to value it, whether it's required, or whether it's going to hold weight. One of the recommendations for within the specialties from IM though has been, the option for IMGs to be able to submit one of these standardized letter of recommendations for internal med. And the thing about when you submit your letters, some of them can hold weight. So often you'll see programs will say, we want a letter from a department chair. So that IM letter, IMGs, it might be hard for you to go back and get a department chair letter. Well, you're not going to miss out on that opportunities like in the past where IMGs weren't able to get that. The IM letter gives you the opportunity for you to be able to fill that and hold the same amount of weight. So that is something I would definitely not overlook. It is not new. They introduced it last year, but they are still for IMGs. It can be used this year, so that's also important. Another thing is a lot of the specialties coordinating interview invites. So again, this is a recommendation. Not all of them are going to participate. Not all residency programs will participate. You would have to check with each one of the programs. But the specialties that are doing this would be dermatology, OB-GYN, orthopedic surgery, and neurosurgery. So what does that mean? That they're going to pick they have decided that there will be certain dates that they will send interview invites. So you're not going crazy thinking, when's my next interview invite if you are applying to one of those specialties, which is pretty cool. Otherwise you're all over the place, but they do have the guidelines. But again, these are specialty recommendations, not requirements, which is important. Another thing we probably heard a lot about was OB-GYN. They're leaving next year, but what about this year? So this year, if you look at them, they have a different deadline for when they are going to be accepting applications up to, which is October 1st. They have something known as the Alignment Check Index. They even have their own app. So it is no surprise that they're going to be leaving ERAS, but they're completely on a different, their own schedule. And again, not all of them are required to participate, but it is something that they do have, and they do have a list of each program that will be participating. So they're really ahead of the game on this one. So if you are applying to OB-GYN, you want to make sure you look at that for sure this year and next year. Well, they're out of the ERAS, which will be very fortunate for those applicants that apply. So again, like I said, recommendations. So some of the things that we hear about recommendation, virtual interviews. Those are recommendations. They're not requirements, meaning you still want to check with each program. Are they sticking with virtual? Are they doing both? Is it a hybrid? Those are some things that, because it's not a requirement. Same thing with the specialty specific recommendations are they participating in signals? Just because the specialty opted to participate, they had until August 4th as an individual program to decide whether they will participate in signaling. So you want to make sure you get those in, which can be found on the ERAS website as well, along with if they're going to be participating in those coordinated interview invite dates. I kind of like to just call those as the universal interview invite dates. So they kind of like agree to this day we'll send out interview invites. And again, those were recommendations. At the end of the day, residency programs are where the requirements are. And how do you know that? Because each one of them, to start the ERAS application, to accept applicants, they have to set their own filter criteria, their own system on how they're going to weigh documents, whether step 3 matters, whether a standardized letter matters, whether what weighs more, what shouldn't weigh more. So that is why I consider looking at the residency program one as the requirements, and recommendations are just kind of a broad way to understand where things are going for that specialty, but it's not a like one size fits all for all of them. Again, okay, so now that we know what's different, what's same, and now you're wondering, well, how many specialties should I apply to? How many programs am I going to apply to? And of course, I don't know if many of you thought about this yet, but what is your budget to apply? These are all three things that, even you're like, well, no, I'm going to apply to all, every single internal med program, or I have a way I'm going to only apply to 50 programs, or my budget doesn't matter, I'm going to apply to I can apply to everything. somehow you're kind of going to want to know and be forced to um, rethink that whole process, and start it off with making your budget your game plan. So the reason we say that is, like I said, any one of those ones, like you had a plan, you have a lot of money, or you are only applying to 50. So we're going to start off with here. So if you apply to 50 programs in one specialty, it's $1,100. Applying to 50 programs in 5 specialties, it's half the price at 575. So, unless you really, unless you really make your dollar go more, there is a consideration of looking at, maybe I should add another specialty in, even if you didn't want to. Would you really want to spend the same amount for those 50 programs? So that's something to keep in mind. So the more specialties you apply to, applying broad, as they say, it's actually cheaper, and you get more out of it. So it's the smarter way. Whether, even if you don't want to be smart about your money, you will be able to get more out of it. So like I said, 1100 or 575 for 50 programs, or even picking 2 or 3. So that should, and again, what are you thinking about? What do you need to apply to other specialties? Changing my letter of recommendations and my personal statement. That's not a bad idea. That's not too bad of a thing compared to $500 more for the same amount. The next part is how many programs to apply to. So, another thing I didn't realize is that there's not an equal number of programs of, in each specialty. There's no button on ERAS that says select all. You'll notice it's crazy. It'll say search, and you're like, search, where there's not a select all button, and there's not an equal number of residency programs in each specialty. There's not an equal number of positions in each specialty. So to give us a better picture, we're going to use the match data from this past March, in figuring out, which specialties have the most number of PGY1 positions, and how many are there. And I think this was another surprising thing. When you don't match, of course, you want to sit there and blame yourself. And like I said, it's not your fault. And then even just looking at the specialties, that how many positions are available. I know we were looking at, there's 11,000 people that didn't match. Okay, that's right. Now look at the number of positions that are in each specialty. Internal doesn't even have 10,000 spots. Now this is just the categorical. There's a prelim, but how many prelim programs? I know when you're around this, if you see a prelim program, go ahead and check that off. If in IM, OB-GYN, in surgery. However, that's never the first, the goal to be into a first-year program. But that is something that we do have to consider, that there's not really a full-on specialty that has even 10,000 spots. And knowing how many people apply, and that does add to the competition. And if you even look past IM and family, we have below 5,000 positions. So that itself was scary, in terms of, I know people always are like, well, is this specialty competitive? Well, just think about all the people that, I can tell you that for psychiatry, they barely got 2,164. That used to be a backup option. And you think about how many people are applying, and you think there's definitely, more applicants than positions. In terms of how many positions, I don't think we're ever made aware of that. So it's important to keep in mind, like pathology only has 613. That was shocking. So it's interesting, because they always say we want, there's a doctor shortage, there's the, but it's like you only have 600 seats for pathology. So just these are entry level positions that if you graduated, you're going to need to do, unless you already have a prior year done of residency. Now, looking at us individually, what did you do in Match 2023? Did you participate in the supplemental application? Did you only apply to one specialty? Did you have 0 interviews? Did you meet the requirements for every program? Did you focus on your red flags instead of your green flags? And did you utilize all your connections? So from going from unmatched in match 23 to matched in 2024, this is common, and I think we all need to keep this in mind. Like I said, there's going to be some things that you're like, this is so simple. I know how to match. I know how to do this. Okay. But these things are kind of key, and we forget when we get so bogged down into all the little details of applying. So, we can't expect different results by doing the same things over again. So the one thing I always tell applicants is just do something different. And when I say do something different, everyone's like, well, I can't take step 3. I can't do another observership. You don't have to do all that. Of course, it's great, but there's only about a 5-month period, and there's no need to go rush and take a 2-day exam if you're going to fail it, because step 3 is probably the only one of the steps for state licensing that are directly correlated to the number of fails. When you look at the state licensing requirements, not the filters, the requirements to have a resident, you can have multiple fails on step 1, step 2, but you can't have multiple fails on step 3. There are some states that will require you passing it on the first or second time. So step 3 is one of those ones where if you are not ready to take it before December 31st, don't push yourself. There's other ways you can change your application and do things differently this time, without having to take that big step and make it riskier for yourself. So one of the things we can do is participate in program signaling. So according to the AMC data from last year's supplemental application, in all participating specialties, sending a program signal resulted into a higher probability of interview invitation. So, last year for supplemental, the deadline was 2 weeks before. It was kind of complicated. We didn't know. Program signaling is optional this year, but you are able to signal programs when you submit your application. So you don't have to worry about any other extra dates. So on September 27th, when you submit your application, you go ahead and you can signal at the same time. And it's just a signal. You don't have to write the reason why. It is honestly the easiest thing of the whole application, of picking out who you're going to signal. Everything else requires like an explanation. The signal is just plain, here you go. Each specialty that participates does have a different number of signals you can send, but I would not avoid this at all. I would make sure you signal a program. It doesn't matter if you're like, well, make sure you signal. This is the way to, this is how they're trying to make it fair. It is what I would say a good filter. Signaling is something that can be filterable. The way their filter logic works is they can, is it a complete or incomplete application? So go from complete. The next thing they would look at is, who signaled the program. Now I know there's that hesitance. Well, if I signal this program, will the other programs know? So if you signaled a program, that program that was signaled will only know. The other ones will not know. There's rules that they're not supposed to ask you. There's nowhere on their application. So if you didn't signal their program, it will be like it won't show up. So they didn't get a signal. But I would definitely, like I said, signal and make sure you take advantage of this year. Another thing is apply to more than one specialty. I would apply to at least 3 different specialties. And in incorporating the last point, I would pick 2 specialties that are participating in program signaling. Like I said, there's 22 specialties that are doing that this year. I would pick the other 2 specialties in that were at least picking. I would make sure at least 2 of the 3 specialties was program signaling. And also, it is cheaper. So applying to 50 programs in one specialty is double the price than applying to 50 programs in 5 different specialties. So there is a way, if you apply to 10 programs, you're literally getting more for your dollar applying to multiple specialties. So there's different ways to do this. We will get into this more. But of course, apply to more than one specialty. And like I said, how can we do that? What are the things that you can change? Your letter of recs and your personal statement. Another thing is meet the requirements. So when you say meet the requirements, of course, we talked about programs, specialties that had these specific rules where they were doing standardized LORs. And like I said, each each residency program makes its own filter criteria, their own weight on what document means more, what means less. So if they're making the filters, they're also making the requirements. So it's not always the same basics. I mean, generally. And you'll be surprised at researching programs are really going to clue you in. And when you avoid that step, you really miss out on this. So some programs will have 3 to make a complete application, three-letter recs. Some will have 4. So remember, you can upload as many LORs as you want, but you can send the max 4. And then if you look at, let me give you an example, the family medicine one, they specifically say, well, make sure you know the difference between 3 letters or 4 letters, because programs are knowing that you're not paying attention. There's all these little knacks. So making sure you look up each program's requirements is very important, instead of taking that general approach. Also, some programs will have, the year of grad, the bad filters. Some will even tell you in a personal statement, we want you to add this, excerpt. Why would you benefit in this or something? And, paying attention to those little details does make you stick out if that's something that they have listed, and they would look for that. And that's one more chance that you can have at getting invited. Also, visa requirements. There's these things are not consistent. I know for the visa requirements, it's hard when you look at it like, oh, last year they accepted visas. You don't want to focus on, another program list from previous or year. They can change that yearly. They can even change that departmentally. The IM program can take J1s, but then the surgery one doesn't. It's unfortunate, but that's another reason I would not depend on any list besides making my own list each year. Again, because who makes the filters? It's the residency programs. And remember, the reason the filters can matter is they can prevent an applicant from getting notice, which would be filtered out. So if you got 0 interviews, I would go back and I'd see, okay, was my application complete? Am I getting filtered out? Oftentimes what will happen is, of course, when you don't match, you don't get any feedback, but you have to just go by the clues that you do get. But then you do hear those stories where, like, this is an unmatched applicant and they had high scores. What happened? Well, and they had no interviews. Or you'll see people that are like, I applied again and I did step 3, but no interviews. Or you'll see people, unfortunately having to waste their time with customizing personal statements, which can be a lot if you're applying a lot of programs, or even 30 programs to make 30 personal statements, wherein that might not be, you might be getting filtered out before wasting all that time. So it's important to apply smarter, especially since this will be your second chance at it. Of course, there's those bad filters, the score cutoffs, the year of grads, the visa requirements, the ECFMG certification, the LORs, the clinical experience. Again, these are what we would call our red flags. We can't change those. We can just see which ones are not going to put up with those in terms of a program. Not all of them are going to, like I said, don't be general about it. And these are some things you can't change. You can't go back and retake an exam. You can't change your LORs. If you do have the ability to change the visa requirements, there are ways you can change your year of grad. But in terms of your score cutoffs, other things, right now it's August and the application's due in about a month. And so there's only so much you can do. And technically, it's only been 5 months since you knew that you didn't match. So I understand, and there's only so many parts. So don't let this bog you down. Don't let this be a focus of your personal statement. Don't let this kill your confidence as well. One of the things is you're I know you're applying for residency, and as soon as they invite you, you're sitting there thinking, oh, I'm not going to get an interview. I didn't match. That's not, your job is to convince them to hire you. And remember, there's certain things you can't change. So you're going to have to work with what you have. And especially this year, there's good filters. The program signals, that's why I say participate in, the geographic preferences, the setting preferences. One of the things was, so program signals will be shared with only programs that you signal. The geographic preferences will only be shared for the programs within that division. Setting preferences, however, are shared with everybody. This might be something you may consider if you want rural family med, you may, is this a preference you want to say, or do you want to, if you're applying to a rural family medicine program, I'm sure that they're going to look out for that. Now, in terms of which way would you want to, you can also list no preference as well too. But if you were applying to, a niche of specialties that, like I said, rural family med programs, there are those rural track ones, and you do go to those. I would try to make sure that I have it somewhere on my ERS along with your experiences. They are, the whole point of the holistic review and having the 10 selected experiences, even though it's not a comprehensive list, is that they're trying to have this looked at as a plus factor. So instead of using filters to get you out, you didn't make the cutoff, it's like, oh, look at this plus. That's how they want to approach the holistic review. So using the filters as a plus factor. So making sure that you have those in there. So, sometimes I see people that, individually, and you look at their application, you're like, why are you missing this? And especially this year, if there's something that you want to go ahead and add, like if you were a big part of a advocacy group or an organization, or you had some experience that you wanted to highlight, this is going to be your chance. One of the things that is optional, though, is the impactful experiences. That is something that they found that from last year's research, mostly DOs and IMGs did stress in there, and that's something that, remember, there's that one question that was your education ever interrupted or extended? So the impactful experiences is going to go kind of along the lines of that, but not exactly. It says anything that can influence your decision. Now, they are aware that not everybody, this might be a personal question. So, like I said, it is an optional question that you have to answer. The SLOEs. So, the standardized letter of LORs. The IM these IM specialty has made it available for IMGs to even have a letter of rec that would be standardized, even though, sometimes you'll say that you will see a program will require a department chair letter, and you're thinking, oh, this is filtering out IMGs. Well, IM's standardized letter of rec, they actually have one for IMGs. And so that is something that if you can take a part of, I would, especially if they ask that, you don't have to be like, oh, I can't apply. Just showing up with one of those, it can hold extra weight. All right. Now, this is the most important part where I think that everybody, and it is time consuming, but it is going to be, if you do this once, and when you get interviews, you can go back and refer to this list. You're actually it's really going to pay off for you. So the first thing is, how are we going to research these programs? So we want to get a list of all the programs in each specialty for this match. Like I said, do not use old lists. You're going to miss out on new programs. You're going to miss on smaller applicant pools. You're going to miss out on requirements that don't pertain to you. And the key is a smaller applicant pool. So, if everybody's using this list from last year, yeah, and now this program's changed their requirements, you're going to miss out that smaller applicant pool. So to do this is about the fastest way and the best way to do it is you want to go to the ERAS participating specialties page, and under there you're going to click under the September cycle. So it will be right here, and you want to make sure that it's the September cycle. So they'll have the choice of residency or fellowship. You go in there, and then the next thing is you want to click on the specialty. So we'll go ahead and pick family medicine. And what we did is you go ahead, you can organize it like an Excel sheet up and, organize it by states. You can organize it by program name. So because we have geographic preferences, I would go ahead and organize it by state and cut and paste all the programs right here into an Excel sheet. And we would copy these into your Excel sheet, which I'll get into this right here. Now, the reason I like doing it this way is when you go search on ERS, you can search using the ACGME ID. You can organize these based on your geographic preferences from the cut and paste. And when you click on these, they're going to take you directly to the residency program's website. And then, of course, now adding these parts to your Excel sheet, which is the number of LORs, any score cutoffs, year of grad, if the visa requirements, or any deadlines. So I put those in red. Everyone will have a different one. Like I said, these should be personalized and for your only. And I would write and I would go through this, and if I made any of those cutoffs, so if it was a score one, if it was relevant. Now, the beauty of doing a list for yourself only is you don't have to fill this out. You only have to fill out the one that is going to pertain to you. So the reds are going to be the red flags, meaning don't apply. Then there's also sometimes the program will tell you, like I said, the personal statement. If there are any other preferences, we seek an applicant that's had experience in urban clinical experience. Well, that's going to be helpful because on my URAS and the new experiences section, you'll know what to add in there. Another part that you want to go ahead and make note of is their interview invite method. So what is their method? I know virtual interviews are recommended, but you want to confirm, are they doing virtual? Are they doing both? Like I said, it's not a requirement. Each program is going to pick theirs. The next part is, how are they inviting these interviews? Are they going to use ERAS? Are they going to use Thalmus? Are they going to use interview broker? Are they one of those specialties that are going to use those coordinated interview dates? And there will be a way to access that. Those will be important while you're sitting there waiting, like I didn't get any interviews. Well, you want to check your junk mail, but if you already know, oh, well, this one applies to Thalmus, you can go ahead and add those to your Gmail account or to your email account to make sure that it doesn't go to junk, knowing those. Another part will be knowing the dates and deadlines. So if they said, our interview date is, they run through October through February. So if you're done here from a program and you're in January, you're like, okay, I guess they have until February. If a program's interview runs until Christmas and you're thinking, oh, should I reach out to this program in January? No. I would make sure I reached out to them before January, because they stated that their deadline was, December, and they don't plan on doing this past that. So that's going to be helpful at those other times of the year. Along with the other part is going to be another part where it says contact. How do they plan to communicate with applicants throughout the year? So some programs will say, you know what, we are enthusiastic of hearing from you. While some programs will say, do not call. If they say do not call, or this is a busy, we will reach out directly. Make a note of that, because there will be a time where you're sitting there wondering, well, I haven't heard. Should I interview? Should I send it a love letter or a letter of interest? Well, go back to this list and make sure you don't contact the programs that said don't. Like I said, if they stated on their website that no, then make sure you make a note of it. You don't want to accidentally just send one in and just make it have that as your intro. So make a note of the ones that don't want to be contacted or are strictly against it, period. So you'll know. And then any extra information. So usually, like I said, we're going to go to the residency program's website. It's usually under the how to apply. We're going to check what they consider to be a complete application. We're going to only add the information that's pertinent to you. And then, like I said, they can say, are there any preferences that they have? Make a note of that. You want to look at your method of interviews, interview invites, and the timeline. How they communicate. This is also going to be very important. Now, what happens? Everything turns out and you meet all the requirements. There was no score cutoffs. You meet their year of grad. Okay, so let's go ahead and explore the website some more. So what would you do? I would go to the next part I would look at is looking at their current residents and faculty. Instead of saying, oh, is this an IMG friendly program? This is not the mindset now. Where are their residents from? Do you recognize any of their faculty? Did any of them go to school or attended the same school or undergrad as you? Even not, do you see anything in common? Do they all come from local nearby medical schools? Are they, is there anything else that they have in common? So, how they always say, we want to rank program applicants that are a fit. So see if you see any familiar faces. See if you see any resemblances. Another thing that you want to check out as well is usually they have a letter from the program director as well on the site. And the program director either is highlighting how great their program is or what they think is great about the program, but most importantly, you want to keep an eye out as, are they trying to train the next future, somebody in the community, or somebody that's going through a fellowship, somebody that, are they highlighting, like, our past residents graduated and they ended up in these fellowships. That will help you tailor your personal statement if you were planning to tailor it. Oh, well, where do I see myself later? Well, I see myself in a fellowship. Okay, well, this program is already looking to train those ones. Or are they looking to have somebody that's making local community roots? So, I have local ties. Is that going to mean anything to them? Now, another thing that you'll see is the curriculum. So not all residency programs are equal, meaning their curriculum is going to be different. Not all of them are going to have the same rotation. So if is there any, look at their rotations, look at their curriculum. Is there any rotations? Look at the third or the last year, second to third. Is there anything different that you notice? Or is there something like, there was something like street medicine? That's some of the family med ones. There's something like rural medicine. For psychiatry, there's different ones as well. But is there any rotations that stick out to you that you could make connections with? I know that's a bit much, but if you do, you're like, oh, this one, I like how they do telehealth. Make a note, just write that, oh, they do telehealth, and you can make a note of that. So let's say you do get invited and you go back and you're just, this is the time where these notes are going to mean a lot. Oh yeah, this curriculum. So those are some things I would look at. Like I said, once you meet the part where you're like, okay, I meet all the requirements, spend some more time on the website. It's really going to pay off in your benefit, because no one else is going to know. Not everyone, just looking at current residents and faculty, you might not even realize somebody went to your school or somebody you knew and where they are, compared to having somebody's old IMG friendly list. You're missing out your own opportunities and your connections when you depend on another list and not take the time of looking at the direct source. Another thing is, like I said, using your connections. So of course, everyone will always want to help, but it's going to be your job to show them how to help you. So, if you notice, when we were looking at programs individually, and you notice that one of your letter writers went to the same med school as this. So, this person might not be able to write you a letter rec, but could they reach out to somebody at that faculty? Or is there somebody that they know, to help you out in terms of, is there a connection that you're able to make? So like I said, not everyone has to get you that interview, but there's other ways that they can help you. Is it to help pull out your application, make a phone call, or mention your name? The match rules are, you're able to contact programs unless they state it, but the only time you're not able to contact programs is SOAP week. So all the other time you are able to make contact, utilize that. And again, so how to apply differently in Match 2024. Participate in program signaling. Apply to 3 specialties. Pick your geographic preferences. Then research every program you apply to. Be proactive after September 27th. So, as soon as you push submit, don't just sit there. Go back to this list. Okay, I haven't heard back. Reach out. Was there somebody, a connection you knew, who could find out what's the application process? There's different ways. And then focusing on your green flags. What can you bring to the table? Is it your geographic ties, your past research experience, something that you were able to make a connection with? So again, you want to plan ahead, be proactive, and stay positive. Like I said, you can't change your red flags, just forget about them. And another part would be, how Unmatched MD, how we help on the website here. Like I said, we are an exclusive resource, so we help applicants identify their green flags, help them use their filters to get noticed by offering exclusive insights. We also have one-on-one group meetings with our members. We find smaller applicant pools we post those year-round. We also have a Q&A board. We also have paid positions for if you're looking for a clinical job, a non-clinical job, or research, along with unpaid positions, unfortunately, and alternate pathways to licensure. And like I said, it is an exclusive resource. Like we used to be free, we've been able to expand our team. And in terms of, unlike the match, we like to have more positions than applicants. So we do keep the membership open. However, once we find that there's more applicants than positions, we do stop, we do close up our membership base until we're able to equal that out. So definitely take advantage while that is there. Another part, and of course last, would be how IMG Helping Hands helps, is they definitely help with the highlighting. We work with them, highlighting the green flags, also utilizing the filters to get noticed, customizing those personal statements for other specialties. They're probably the only one of our partners that know how to do this like a pro, in terms of, well, I never really planned on applying to these two. Like, what am I going to do? They've been really good at being able to change the personal statement, even though you're without having to add extra or come up with a whole new different part, along with the slowies for the IMGs and the research modules. And then we'll go ahead and start with our Q&A. I know I'm going to go from the top here. So can we add research papers to the experience? So you can add research experiences to your experience part, but there's another part there at the end. So you can add 10 experiences, which is your only chance to add observerships, clinical rotations. You can add research, but unless you really wanted to, I would, there's a part for publications, peer reviews. So you can add an unlimited amount of those research parts at the end too for publications. So unless you really want to, explain more about the research experience, I would save it for the publications towards the end, unless you wanted to, like I said, add more to it. Yes, geographic preferences is just, where do you prefer? Either you can have a no selection, I don't have any preference, but it would also help out in terms of looking up programs, having those geographic preferences. Hometowns is where they go ahead and indicate, where do you have close ties to? Did you ever do a rotation there? Do you have family there? I would go, geographic preferences is where you would like to, work. But hometowns is probably where they say, where do you have close ties to? And I guess if you were asked for a, more on that, it's going to be more about having that connection in terms of hometowns. But if you are going to have geographic preferences, try to have it either, there's other parts that you can kind of add to correlate with your geographic preferences, whether it be your current address, your permanent address, hometown, one of your experiences, one of the cities for your research and your publications. So is it recommended to put geographic preference? So they did say that you do, like, program signaling increases your chances, and that's optional, but having a geographic preference and a program signal also that aligned with a program also increased their chances of getting an interview invite. So like I said, if there's 9 different regions. So if you signal their program and they're in your division, or the division that you preferred in, which there's several states and for each one, it would be a plus. I could only see it working for you. Having no you do have the option of writing no selected experience or no preference. No, the geographic preferences is only going to be read by the ones that are in those divisions. There's 9 different divisions. So if they got signaled, there will be a little sign that they were signaled. If there was a division that they preferred, there will be they will know. They're not going to know about your other preferences. The only thing that all of them will know are your setting preferences. Do you want to work in an urban area, a rural area, or a different area?
Hi, sorry, can I speak?
Yes.
Ask a question. Yeah, so following up on the question about the explanation of the geographical preference, I wanted to specifically ask that they asked for explanation for why we choose that geographical preference. So is it like, can we For example, I have friends in all the geographical preference or family in geographical preferences that I choose. Can I write the same explanation in all of them, or should I write differently?
So you're saying you could pick, you would say that you would write your explanation as I have family in all three of them?
Yes.
You could, but it would also help make it stronger if I were you. I'm sure you've had experiences in other places. Now, if you don't have US experiences, another way I would highlight that is when you put your hometowns, I would try to make them in the US, but when I put in my setting preferences, and let's say I picked rural, then I would also pick my, and I had like an experience. They are going to ask, was this a rural setting? Was this a suburban?
Dr. Sarah, it's Michelle. I think there are two aspects of the question that need to be broken to, and I didn't answer it in the chat because I wasn't sure. When you pick a geographical preference, is there a field in the application for you to explain your choice in the first place?
Yes. Let me go ahead and pull that up here. Give me 1 second.
There is a field for you to explain your choice.
Yes, the another part that they changed in this is they're gonna have the standard asking of location, setting preferences. So let me pull that up.
Okay. This is the second aspect of the question that needs to be answered a little clearly. If you're an IMG in your home country or in another country, like I don't like using the term home country because a lot of IMGs sometimes leave home country to go study medicine in another, and then they apply to the USMLE. So if you're in a non-US country and you're studying, or you're in your home country and you're studying or you've graduated, what is the value of indicating a geographic preference if you're not from the US was a part of the question. And I think that that's a huge question for IMGs, and that, should you indicate one anyways if you're not from here? You see what I'm saying? And then that gets into where do you have friends and family?
Yeah,
so you
that's
do have the choice that wasn't addressed.
You do have the choice of three, are indicating no preference. And what I was saying, that each part that's going to be collected in research in your experiences, they're going to ask you the country, the state, the city, the postal code, the setting, in terms of your addresses, your hometowns, your experiences, your education and training. So if you were saying that, you can say that I have no preference, but your interest is in, and you have no preference, but you do have a setting preference because you worked in a setting like that at home. Does that help answer? Was there any more on that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on this whole preference thing. Another point, which is important to note, I think, is the person speaking previously, they mentioned that a lot of IMGs don't necessarily have ties to the US, so they don't have like any specific geographic preference, whether or not they should pick, because you have an option of 3, you can pick up to 3, whether or not they should pick them. And one point of view is that when you're like going through Residency Explorer, if you look at the stats, then you realize that programs do, like a lot of the programs do use these filters, geographic preference filters, to filter out applicants or give like more weightage to certain applicants. Same thing with the signals, like the stats are all there, right? And since it's a new thing, it's only been going on since last year, but the stats show that they do have weightage in a lot of the programs. So I definitely think it would be better to go for geographic preference as compared to no preference at all.
Yeah, yes, I agree. But there are times where you're like, well, I don't care, I would work anywhere. You can make connections, right? So, if you're from a place that was a big city, and you pick these 3 regions, there's a way to make that connection. You don't have to, there in terms of, I picked this region because they have a lot of urban areas, or if there's a lot of, and that's still mixing in the other ones, but trying to make that connection, or this reminds me, it's a very similar. And each country has like each state has a counter country that they're like their adopted country, like, so you try to make a connection. If you've done a rotation, if you've had any experience at all with it, or have heard about it, or are amazed by it. What'd you say?
I said, yeah, absolutely. What you're saying definitely makes sense, to try to again link it up to our previous experiences or places that we've experienced, so it looks like it's wholesome.
Yeah, because once you get that interview, they're going to ask you what brings you to the program. Of course, like I said, I know they're not all the same, but having that, you can just say, I just heard Tennessee had a great program and I've always liked it. Or you can say, just so that's why I picked it as my geographic preference. Of course, it would be stronger if your current address, your permanent address, or one of your experiences or researches. But there's no harm or foul in saying, well, I have a preference for working on the East Coast. I like the snow. It can be something like that, because the thing about a residency program is they want to make sure that you're going to stay there. Whether that means, are you going to have the support system, or are you going to run away because you've never been to a rural town before? And that's their biggest fear. So the key would be to be able to make that connection, even though it's like, okay, well, I like the snow. Well, okay, the snow can be difficult, but yes, I do actually have extensive. Now, they're not going to go look up your family. They're not going to go look up your friends. You can say, there's, you can also look up some highlights. Like I said, when you were looking up the program, and they're like, oh, well, what brings you down to Shreveport? They'll say, we have this, this, and this. And you'll be like, that's some of the things. So this way, that there's a way for you to show your interest. Those are ways that I would highlight them as for the interview.
Yeah, and sorry, one last question I have. It's off topic a little bit, but the one thing I'm confused about is the year of graduation. Like, how do they count that? Some programs have it written as a medical degree obtained within 3 years of application. So that means, like, say I'm applying now, the year that I'm applying is 2023, but I'm applying for match 2024. So based on those 2 years, the year of graduation differs. That's one thing I get confused about.
So you said now on the program website, you see that they say that the year of grad cutoff is within the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. For example, on the website I'm at right now, they say that a medical, the year of YOG is 3 years, and they count it as a medical degree obtained within 3 years of application.
So the application date. Some programs, what I've seen is also they'll tell you in terms of the start date. So from 2024 or 2023. Okay. So I would go ahead and say with the 23 date.
Okay, so if this program is saying within the date of application, that means they're counting it as in 2023.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I guess instead of reading them down, I'll just go ahead and ask.
So another question. I'm sorry. Would you suggest use clubbing a lot of experiences together? For example, I had 5 months of experience in Brooklyn, all in clinics. So do you suggest clubbing them all or writing them separately? Because if I club them, I get an opportunity to add another experience. But if I don't, then it becomes too much of you, US clinical experience of you.
Well, there's never too much experience. Well, okay, so there's 10 you get to pick, right? And they said the average for when the supplemental was about 5 to 6. Mm-hmm. I would make sure personally, I would have an experience for each specialty I applied to. So, mm-hmm. I would make sure of those. Now, maybe if you're like, well, I'm not applying to surgery, maybe you could leave the surgery part out. But I would make sure that I would have 3 different experiences if I was applying to 3 different specialties that highlighted my experience in those. So if I did a peds rotation, a psych rotation, a family med, I would separate those 3.
So my experiences were all outpatient and internal medicine. I was thinking of clubbing them and then adding, which gives me an opportunity to add one experience from FM that I had in Canada but not in US. So that was my idea of, should I club them?
in terms of clubbing, would they be the whole time? Were they all continuous?
Yes,
And so how many experiences were there?
there were 3 different clinics for 5 months, and I'm like they did almost the same thing everywhere. Um, but they were like one was cardiology, the other was nephrology, third one was hemonc. So
Okay. Well, and then you would have one for family. So that would still take you down to 5 total experiences. What other experiences were you planning that you were worried that you wouldn't have?
I have 3 more in different hospitals in different states, so that they are going to be separate. And then one from my home country. So in total, I have more than 10. So I need to figure out what to write and what to not.
Do any of them correlate with your geographic preferences?
Yes.
I would make sure to. Is there any other part that you're going to be able to share? A reason for your geographic preference besides like the basic ones? Using a current address or a permanent address, or maybe a research paper from that place. Do you have a research paper from any of them?
Not from any of them. I have separately.
Okay. I would probably pick ones that the programs, I would pick the ones, like I said, where it's a specialty. The second thing would be looking at those programs at that, looking at that specialty at that program and seeing which one had the best chance. So like, if you have an experience from Harvard, but you didn't meet the requirements, maybe I'd put that on the lower one. But you're like, I definitely met Ohio State. I definitely met the one for Chicago. I would maybe make sure I put those on the top. So they're like, okay, here's my geographic preference, here's my signal, and here's my experiences. In terms of grouping them, I would make sure that like, okay, I didn't just, I would probably like skip out on the other ones before I would group them all. But having that many experiences, I can understand why you'd want to include all 10. But I would go from like weighing them out to your most relevant and most relevant in terms of your best shot at, like, what do you want them to see? Like, do you want Ohio to notice you? Well, they're definitely, you want to make sure they're going to notice you, right? So just in case, yeah.
So it doesn't matter if it shows up gaps or not.
No,
another reason I was trying to.
Yeah. So that's the weird thing, right? There's not going to show gaps. So if you get that chance where you're like, I had these 10 experiences, but what I'm doing right now, I still want to tell them, well, that's what your personal statement is. One of the things is, like they say, making that personal statement about why you want that specialty, but there's going to be your chance of saying what I've did to, since what I'm doing right now as as a reapplicant, it will be also your chance as well too.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Hey, I have a question. Can I ask, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So I also uploaded this question in the chat group. So my question was that my step 3 exam result will be announced on 11 a.m. on 27 September. So is it okay to submit my ERAS application after updating step 3 scores at 11 a.m. on 27 September, or I should first upload the ERAS application on 26 September and then I should update step 3 scores on 11 a.m. 27 September?
Okay, so we're talking about step 3 scores, right? So what was the program requirements? Did the program require a step 3 score? Most likely they didn't. So what I would do with this is I would definitely make sure I had my ERAS sent in, and then in a week, or when you're even in that thing, the programs that are saying, hey, we want to, you can communicate with us. This would be a nice opportunity, instead of saying, oh, I'm really interested in your program, just to say, I wanted to add something, so they can go ahead, look at your application again with your step 3 scores.
Okay. So I can communicate them through emails, right? Through program coordinator.
Yes, as long as the program wants it.
Okay. So I can update after also.
Yes. So I would first want to make sure that I met the program's requirements, which you already have. And so I would want to go ahead and make sure my application is sent out by September 27th. And now anything extra, any highlights, there comes that time where you're like, well, I'm not hearing back from programs. Step 3 is the best excuse to call. I'm not, you can call them or invite however they prefer, in terms of, here's something new. One of the ways to escape filters is getting your application noticed. And there's other ways, just in case you got filtered out, here's another reason for you to make that, I really want your program, and I wanted to give you an update about my step 3 scores.
Okay, because I was so confused about that, because I have heard about that some programs put the step 3 filter also this year. So is that right or not?
Well, that will be dependent on each program. Is it a program requirement? So what I would do is I would go ahead and make sure that, I'm sure they're going to have people on your list that the requirement to apply to the program is not going to be step 3. So I wouldn't want to miss those program requirements by applying on October 1st with my step 3 score, where these programs that, only wanted step 3 compared to the majority of them wanting only up to step 2.
And thank you so much for your response, ma'am. And my just last question is that what is the exact time program directors see the ERAS application? What is the best time to upload the ERAS application? Is it 26, or some people say it should be on before 20 September? So please mention that. Thank you so much.
So yes, yeah, no. So that's the thing. This is what gets confusing. The funny thing is, with you're able to apply or send in your application, but it's still going to be postmarked September 27th. And then, like I said, you can't make any changes, right? So if there's the earlier date in September that you can begin sending it, but programs do not begin reviewing applications until September 27th.
And what's the specific timing on 27 September? Any specific timing?
Yes, I think it is September 27th at 9 a.m. Eastern. So, another thing is sometimes it crashes. If you're already done on the 26th, you're like, this is it, I would go ahead and do it on the 26th. But, in terms of, should I fill it in on September 14th or the day that it opens? No.
Okay, and my last question, if I upload application on 11 p.m. on 27 September, is it okay? Because I have heard some people say that program directors only once download the application at 9 p.m. and they don't download after that.
So the thing is, remember, they still use the same platform. They stopped downloading applications back in 2011. It is just like when you log in, how we log in to go to ERAS and we can search. That's how they search. And there's a dashboard which tells you there's new applicants who have a complete application. And even for this year, they have one where they can put it up and say how many of them have a new score, how many of them have a new letter.
I didn't get this properly. Can you please elaborate?
In terms of, they don't download applications. It's a login part, right? So in terms of when you log into, just like when you log into ERAS, right? You're able to look at programs. That is exactly how they are looking through your applications. And the way the dashboard is that there's, their goal is to find applicants to interview. So they have filters, but there's different parts of the dashboard that that are visible to them. How many applicants applied today? How many of them have a new feature in their application, such as a new letter, a new score? The dashboard that's in front of the residency programs already has it. In terms of downloading, it's a platform where you log in. The downloading part takes when they go ahead and invite you for the application.
Okay, thank you. So we can also upload at around 12 p.m. or 1 p.m. Is it okay on 27 September, right?
The timestamp, I would make sure I would have the 9/27, and because these things can crash, that is one thing. I would, like I said, I would not wait till 11 p.m. I would, if you're ready at 9 a.m., go ahead. Do you have to get it at 8:59? Like I said, these things do crash. I would try to make sure it's on the 27th. If you can do it on the 26th, you try to do it on the 26th, but just keep those, the thing is not perfect, especially the ERAS part, and how many people are. I would make sure to send in my ERAS part. Remember, you still have to attach other parts of the document. So some parts where you can also try is there will be some place that your letters are not uploaded yet, and you're like, oh man, my complete application is they wanted 4 letters. I would still go ahead and submit my ERAS on by September 27th, right? the next part I would go ahead and do is I'd submit the 3. Whenever the 4th letter came in, I would go ahead, and that is why when you research programs, they will say the application deadline, they'll say is November 30th, October 1st. So that means that they're still continuously reviewing your application, and in terms of they haven't downloaded and everything else. And
Thank you,
as a
ma'am.
final,
Thank you so much. It was so good. Thank you, ma'am.
is there another question?
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Oh, go on.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Sarah, I just finished my step 2 exam, and I'm waiting for my result of OET. So would you recommend me applying for this cycle? Because I'm thinking like I'll update my profile after taking a token. Like I'll add some of the research which are going to be published, and I've no experience yet of UCSC, so I was thinking like I'll apply in the meanwhile, like before March or something, 2 or 3. So
The best way to answer that, of course,
yeah.
the first time applying, will this be your first time applying?
Yeah, this would be my first time applying.
Most people when they apply, it's always you're never going to be prepared, even if you're reapplying. Okay, the best way to answer that is find any programs that that are like, we don't care about your step 2, or we want somebody that's had experience back home or something. Then I would look at it, and then it would also give you an idea when you're looking at these that these guys are more worried about a year of grad. So I don't want to give you something that says that, and then you go look at programs, and then I throw you off by a year of grad.
So should I wait for
step,
yeah.
It should be in before September 27th if you took it already this month.
No, I already have my score, and next week I'm waiting for my OET score. So after that, I'll be applying for ECFMG certificate.
Okay,
So,
and how long will that certification will take for you? Will you be able to get that done within the next month as well?
Yes, I think in the first week of September.
Okay. Now, do you have a lot of money that you can afford to apply again?
No, I don't think so.
No, you can put yourself on a budget. You might say this might be my practice year, and give yourself like a $500 budget, and maybe apply and see if you get interviews. Don't count yourself out. The requirements are to be
Is
ECFMG
there
certified.
anything positives or negatives for applying for the first time, or if I apply in the next cycle for the first time, would there be any positive or negative?
The year of grad could be an issue.
Okay.
But like I said, you can give yourself a $500 budget. There is the ERAS calculator, and say, I'll apply to 10 programs.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, I have a question for my institution. Yes, please.
Yes.
All right. You. All right, Dr. Sarah, I have a question. Thank you for taking time to answer our questions. My question is that you mentioned that the setting preference will be visible to all the programs. Is that correct? So what do you suggest? We are applying broadly. So then what should we select in the options? Because the options are so, variable. It could be rural, it could be suburban, urban, or no preference. So would you suggest that we should go with no preference?
If you don't have, unless you're applying to some of these rural programs, but, where you're going to have to, the safest way I would do is I would definitely pick my signal, pick my geographic preference. Personally, I would almost say no preference for the setting, because because it's almost 5 of them. They'll say, do you want suburban, urban, rural, and then they have the mix, and then there's also no preference. So because everyone's going to see it, I would put no preference, but then, just in case you're like, well, something comes up, and you have a friend that's in a rural program and they want somebody, you can highlight that in your experiences. Maybe you did a rotation in a rural place. Maybe one of your hometowns. If you cannot come up with 5 U.S. hometowns, you can say your hometown in your country is rural. That's another way you can make that connection. But I would probably say for the setting preferences, I would go with maybe no preferences. It also depends on you as well, too.
All right, thank you.
Ali, was there another question?
Ma'am, yeah, I have a question about my year of graduation. My last fifth year prof, announced on December 27 by my result, and my graduation degree came out on 2018. So, what would be my year of graduation? Thank you.
What's written in your MSPE?
MSP is 2018. My degree is also 2018.
That would be your year of grad.
So now I'm applying for 2023 or 2024. So my year of graduation 5 years.
Right, and some places don't care. Not all of them care. But when you're worried about, well, my school said this, I stopped clinicals in this, and I took my exams, always refer back to your MSPE.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
No problem.
Hello, Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am. So I'll be applying next year, but I have a few questions. I'm interested in doing psychiatry, but my year of graduation is 4 years if I apply next year. So, yeah, do you think many programs will accept that?
Again, it's going to be very dependent on a program. There are some specialties that care a lot about it. And one of the specialties I will say is family medicine. And the way you can say is that when you go to their conventions, they will even filter out people who don't have a year of grad in less than 3 to attend for networking events. Psychiatry, internal medicine, it's going to be very program specific. We've seen people match 10 years later. We've seen people match 6 years later. Supposedly from AAMC, it will, for an unmatched applicant to finally match, it's 6 years later. So like I said, I would definitely focus on looking, if you see a program that says we want 2, well, cut them out. Don't worry about it. Move on to the next one. Find a program that wants you.
Okay.
And there are.
One more thing. Yeah, okay. One more thing is, you told in the seminar before that about that Excel sheet, right? How to link the programs. Can you tell it again?
Which part? Which part was that?
How to use that Excel with the program list. You are mentioning something like that. Right?
Oh, yes. And that would be, so what I was saying on this part was, what I would do is first go to the ERAS participating specialties. Make sure you pick the September cycle. Then pick on the specialty. So let's go ahead and this one we did family medicine. So then we would go ahead and then I would just cut and I would copy. And then I would make my Excel sheet, which I would just push in here and control copy. And then add another sheet, another row where this is what I copied, the ACGMID. I deleted the city, I kept the state, I kept the program, and then I added these parts. So it reminds me when I go look up programs. So then I want to go look up programs. Okay, I'm going to click here. So this is a screenshot, but this will actually, when you have this on your Excel sheet, it will take you to the programs website. And then I will have this open. I will see, okay, how many letters do they need to make a complete? 3, 4. Okay, 4. That's different. Or, okay, do they have any score cutoffs? No. Keep going. Year of grad, anything that pertains to me would be in the red. And then anything I take a note of, I would add in there.
Okay. Okay, ma'am. So if I'm applying next year, do you recommend the clinical electives to be everything in psychiatry, or it can be a mixture of psychiatry and internal medicine? Say 2 psychiatries, 2 months of internal medicine.
So internal medicine, so like psychiatry, especially psychiatry, not all programs are equal. There's, I would, like I said, basics for sure. Make sure I have 1 experience in the specialty I'm applying to. Now, in some programs here in psychiatry, they have, you do 1 year of IM. So having an IM experience would be helpful. Another part would be if you have any neurology. So when I say apply to multiple specialties, you can go ahead and also apply to neurology as well too.
Okay, so yeah, neurology and internal medicine for psychiatry. Okay.
Yes, it would be
Thank you
helpful.
so much, ma'am. Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate it. Yeah.
No problem.
Ma'am, can I ask you a question from the group? When we were asking this question from the group that if IMSL can be counted as fourth LOR or not?
What was the part?
IMSEL can be counted as a fourth LOR.
So the advantage is, remember we were talking about how much they weigh, right? It can be counted as actually a program, a department letter, which would, so some programs will say we want a department letter from like the head of the department. So it would, which is more valuable. But yes, it will tell you like, we want 3 letters of rec or 4 letters of rec with one has to be from the department chair using the IMSLE.